Hey y'all, back out on a climb on a very warm, beautiful late summer day. Um, just a gorgeous day. And I said that this week we're gonna turn the corner away from some of these grim subjects that we've been discussing. So we left off in a very grim place. But here's the thing. One of the reasons that you should stop arguing with people is that they're actually giving you an opportunity if they're running their mouths. Learn to be quiet and enjoy the opportunity. I was reading the comments on a presentation that a couple was doing. They've been married 30 years, and a black woman in that couple looks like she can still be 35 or 40, although she must be actually closer to 50. But you can see the love between the couple, and it was beautiful, and other people were coming in the comments and telling their stories, and it was beautiful. It really was. However, there were some people who were very unhappy and talking about how she got herself a sugar daddy. He's that much older than her. He's a simp. He was able to do certain things. He bought her, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, no, they got married when they were young. They've been married 30 years. But see, white people and black people age differently. The man was white. And that was the problem. And because these men can't do anything to her but call names, they can't do anything to him but call names, inevitably some of these comments went over to what they'd like to do with black women should we have a particular kind of natural disaster. And I'm sitting here like, okay, obviously I'm not going to waste my time arguing with you because you're no more prepared for the 19th century than I am. So since you've let me know this is what you want to do, okay, do I have a week or two worth of emergency food? Do I have canned goods? Do I have peanut butter and crackers and dried fruit at the least? Okay, these are things you can get at your drugstore and your corner store. I just mentioned these things for anybody who's like, do I need to get prepper food and all that? No, not necessarily. Not necessarily. Do basic things first before you make bigger investments. Batteries, flashlights, okay, I have that. If I was going to take this to another level, some other things to think about. Do I even live in a neighborhood that anybody's going to bother to rescue? Yeah, that's actually a big one. If you really need to do it, you would have to look at, okay, what's the composition of your ground, and are you high enough out of a 500-year floodplain? That's another thing to look at. But before you go there, do you live somewhere that anybody cares enough about to rescue? Anybody who remembers Hurricane Katrina can remember how important this is. And if the smack hits the fan, do I have an evacuation plan? Do I have somewhere to go? And would I be willing to leave my stuff to get myself and any family I may have to safety? That's just basic. Now, if you have more money, you can think about a generator. You can think about moving to another area. All these things, winter is coming actually, in the last third of summer. So, but you don't have to be in wintertime. Earthquakes, summertime, tropical storms, don't care about any of that. All these things are possible wherever you are at any time. Your power grid can go down, lights can go out. And a community is 30% felons. It's going to ideate about criminal behavior because 30%. But when you know that, and then of course, to go to another level, I also could be thinking, okay, have I invested in appropriate self-defense technologies? People are going to vary on how severe that has to get, so we're going to put that right there and leave it there. Appropriate self-defense technologies. But see, if these men weren't making these comments, then we wouldn't be able to prepare defensive methods and counter-offense. Victorious men through the centuries know you don't telegraph your moves. You don't run your mouth about what you want to do to other people because that gives them time to prepare. And even if you never make your move, you actually have blessed them. I want to submit to you ladies that all these men running their mouths, having their little fantasies, have actually blessed us. Because now we know, okay, next level. I talked to y'all last week about the higher masculine powers, right? Where are we as a people in the stats? How much law enforcement and military resources do we control? I'm not talking about officers. I'm talking about how much do we control. So there are other men When I told you the masculine must perform, that are willing, in a country where people are worried about trying to prove their superiority to someone else, there are always going to be men with higher resources willing to stun on men with lower. That's inevitable. So with that being inevitable, where are the higher masculine powers that can be brought to bear should any threat come to you in person? And how do you best motivate them to move? Do you know? I already mentioned, do you have somewhere to go if the smack hits the fan? Do you know what the local agencies that can help you are in your locale and around your locale should you have to evacuate? Do you know? And I'm going to say this part again. Are you willing to leave your things behind if you knew a hurricane was a week away? Would you be willing to stop worrying about whatever things you have that are non-essential and just get moving? Let all that go. Would you be willing to do that? That's a mindset. Our consumerism keeps us trapped oftentimes. And I need to also say, in fairness, a lot of people have a lot of things that are the only good memento they want from terrible situations. They are marks of victory, signs that they survive. They're mementos and memories. I get it. I know so many black women who have nearly wrecked their entire lives spending money on keeping things. But what was happening was when you have to ask people to give you money to pay for you and your things, we're not connected with your things. And what happens is people decide they're not going to pay for both. That's something you really need to think about. And that also tells you something else. You might want to start lightening your load. In my head, I go through a drill. What would be absolutely necessary for me to carry out of my house with me? If there were an earthquake, what am I ready to leave behind? The answer needs to be everything. But many of us, like I said, we're raised in a consumerist environment. We have to actually mentally prepare for that. Do you have things set up in the world such that you could go somewhere else and start over? If there's a computer functioning anywhere else in the world, I can start over. I can start over. In terms of income. I can start over in terms of resources. You have to kind of get yourself to that perspective. And see, these are things that when you listen, see, black men are often like, stop talking and listen. When you really do listen, not listen to comply, but listen to understand. They are blessing us in that they are telegraphing their moves. Now, about big fantasies. You have to understand the men who do this are daydreamers, not visionaries. Visionaries have tough shoes because they are taking hard steps and a map. Daydreamers, whether they are daydreaming positively or negatively on a particular day. Daydreamers do not have shoes nor a map. So even if they climb on someone else's back, they ain't going anywhere. They're not going anywhere except to another daydream. That's it. And so if daydreamers make themselves your opponent, what you do is get tough shoes and a map and decide what you're going to do. Because victorious men know they don't telegraph their moves. Speaking of victorious men, also understand, instead of being mad at what these men have to say online in particular, understand that victorious men in American history have these things called the FBI and the police force. And in having the FBI and the police force, guess who's out here collecting comments and running IP addresses online right now? Don't get caught up in the argument because you don't want any parts of that, right? You don't need to have any part of that. Eventually, my hiking poles fell down. You don't want to have any part of being caught up in those investigations. Now do. Stop arguing and listen. Look for the things that get past the emotion and look for what can improve your life. If someone's waiting for the grid to go down, well, the grid in your area could go down. Do you have a backup plan? Can you remove yourself from having to be bothered? And can you encourage your sisters to do the same? Can you encourage your sisters to do the same once you have yourself situated? Learn to stop arguing, listen, and take the appropriate defensive measures. Learn to stop arguing, pay attention, and take the appropriate evasive maneuvers. Learn to stop arguing, and I have been in situations like this with more powerful organizations, and learn how to do a counter-strike. That's so masculine. No, not really. That has to do with the fact that a woman, Queen Amani Renas of Kush, is one of only 2 African monarchs who was able to run Roman imperialism off the continent. She's the city where Hannibal failed. And she's not in any history book because Caesar Augustus and his followers don't want you to know that. Husband died, son died, she got herself together, and they were throwing away the Roman, melting down the Roman money and pushing over statues of Caesar Augustus and celebrating and rebuilding Kush. This is called human life, where you learn what you have to do. People will terrorize you with their words, their loud talk, and all this. But when you realize that they are blessing you because they've already lost the game when they've told you what it is in advance, then you get on to doing the things you need to do. And that's how we're turning the corner from this very grim opening from last week and turning the corner to what you do when you're no longer arguing. You're learning. And now, when you're done with that, then maybe you want to listen to some other people that actually are doing things. And I'm not talking about outside the black community either, necessarily, although there are some. If you're not arguing with people, you're not being terrorized by their empty threats, now what do you put in your mind? We'll talk about that more tomorrow. All right, y'all have a good day now. Remember, when you see the foolishness online, if you can't avoid looking at it, understand, they give you an opportunity to better your life and take it as such. Goodbye. Thank you for listening.